Hi, this is Sweet Life and I'm Natasha with a recipe for making grilled shrimp two ways. The first is spicy and savory prawns and skewers, and the second is a sweet and spicy white shrimp. Two different styles, two different presentations, but both are grilled with the shell on. This helps you avoid overcooking the shrimp and also adds flavor. Check out the full recipe on the Sweet Life website or Sweet Life Cooking YouTube channel. So here I have some shrimp. This is 2 pounds of shrimp, a pound of two different kinds though. I have a pound of prawns and also a pound of just regular white shrimp. I'm pretty much going to cook them quite similarly, but with a slight difference in them. I've found grilling shrimp with the shell on adds a lot of flavor. This is something that I picked up on from going out to dim sum some years ago. I went to a restaurant in New York, and that was the first place where I had just very simply cooked shrimp. It was like salt and pepper shrimp where they left the shell on. Now, those shells were soft enough where you could eat the whole thing, like pull the head off, take off the tail, but otherwise eat the rest of it. And really, it just added a little bit of crunch. Sometimes you get shrimp and the shell might be a bit too thick for you to eat the shell with the meat, but I've found that whether thick or thin, with grilling, it serves a really great purpose. The first being that leaving the shell on helps to prevent overcooking the shrimp. Shrimp is something that it's relatively inexpensive in comparison to other types of seafood, and when you make it at home, it's fairly easy and quick to cook. The number one concern when cooking shrimp is overcooking it. Where taking it past the point of being just right, it can become a bit rubbery, chewy. But I find that grilling shrimp in the shell, all of that blackening and whatnot that you have goes onto the shell, right? So you're less likely to burn or overcook the shrimp. But it's like leaving it, putting it on the grill in the shell helps to keep the shrimp nice and moist and tender. If it should happen, now granted, you don't want to leave it on there for a half hour and you really shouldn't step away. But if you put shrimp on the grill and you happen to leave it on for a minute or two too long, not the end of the world. The shell will help to save it. In addition to that, grilling shrimp in the shell gives it more flavor. If you think of it like cooking meat on the bone. And in addition to that, if you season it properly, putting a little bit of oil on the outside, it helps you get around the problem of the shrimp potentially sticking to the grill or falling through the grill. In this case, for the smaller shrimp, I'm going to use a little grill sheet. And the rest of it I'm going to do on skewers. And as with any seafood within my house, within my culture, just as when we cook meat, we wash it. So in the case of meat, chicken, beef, things like that, you soak it down with a little bit of vinegar and water, and it's the same rationale with shrimp and other types of seafood. But with seafood, I tend to lean more towards using lemon juice and maybe a bit of salt, which I then rinse off afterwards. When seafood is fresh, it shouldn't have a fishy smell to it. But I find that when you cook seafood, and especially if you then go to reheat it, that's when you tend to have that recooked fish smell. Not an odor, not like something stinky, but it's like if you've ever been at work and someone heats fish in the microwave in the break room, and I find that just washing it down with a little bit of lemon juice helps to eliminate that. Not to mention, I think it helps to impart a little bit of flavor. So in this case, here I've just soaked down the shrimp for a few minutes in some water and lemon juice and then rinsed it off. Taking care not to let it sit for too long. So just a little bit of water in the bowl, pouring a little bit of lemon juice, squeezing a little bit of lemon into it so that way it's diluted. I just have a little spray bottle with a little bit of canola oil in it, and I'll just spray the shrimp down with that. You can use whatever kind of oil you want, just something that's not going to burn. And in part, this is to prevent the shrimp from sticking when you put it on the grill. So with the prawns, with both types of shrimp, they have their shells on. But I'm going to be putting the prawns onto skewers, just some regular wood skewers that I've purchased. If you've ever been to restaurants and seen firecracker shrimp, it's going to be something along those lines. And then with the white shrimp, I'm going to do that on this little grill plate that I have. The reason that I'm separating the two of them, although I've soaked them down together, is that they're going to be seasoned slightly differently. Now, to start, the basic seasoning for both of them is going to be just some regular old kosher salt and a bit of black pepper. But from here, the other ingredients are going to be a little bit different. The prawns are going to have spice on them in the form of cayenne pepper. So just a little bit of cayenne pepper. I'm not the biggest fan of cayenne, but it works here to give it a little bit of spice. And to that, I'm also going to add some fine powdered garlic. a little bit of ginger, so powdered ginger, and, just go ahead and give it a good mix. Really what you're trying to do here is to evenly coat the shrimp. Now that it has oil on it, you mix it up with the seasoning and whatnot, you want to get it all nicely distributed across the shrimp. And so having the oil on the shrimp should help the seasoning stick to it. And then once you have it all nicely seasoned, nicely coated and covered everywhere, taking care to evenly distribute it all over, just go ahead, let that sit for a few minutes while you get the other ingredients together. And now for the white shrimp. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic chili sauce to this. This is my favorite pepper sauce because it has a little kick to it, but it's not overly spicy and it has a nice flavor. And to this, I'm also going to add a bit of honey. You're going to end up having a bit of savory flavor from the salt and black pepper, a bit of spice from the garlic chili sauce, and then a little bit of sweet from the honey that we've drizzled over. It's going to combine for a really nice flavor. And like I said, this is going to go on a grill plate. So the white shrimp are a little bit smaller than the prawns, and using the grill plate helps to ensure that the fish hopefully doesn't fall through the grates into the fire. And to this, I'm just going to add a little bit of garlic powder and a bit of allspice. Give it a good mix. It's a little bit sticky because of the honey, but the oil helps to keep things from being too overboard with stickiness. And once again, just taking care to make sure that the seasoning, the oil is nice and evenly distributed over the shrimp, because you want to make sure that you get a bit of flavor in every bite. Now, with the prawns, I have just some regular old wood skewers. And pretty much what you're going to do is take your skewers and about half hour to an hour or so before you think you're going to be ready to start grilling, just take some of them and put them into water and let them soak while you get your stuff together. You want them to soak for about 30 minutes to an hour. The reason being that, remember, these are wood. If you're using metal skewers or something like that, it's different. But these are wood skewers, and if you put the dry skewers onto the grill, you run the risk of them catching on fire. So just let them soak for a bit. And with that, it should eliminate, if not drastically reduce, the risk of you having your skewers catch on fire. And all you want to do is just get the shrimp and, going the long way, take the pointy end of the skewer and just poke it into, starting from the tail up into the head of the shrimp. You want it to go pretty much all the way through the body, but stop when you feel resistance so it doesn't go all the way through. And this will help to hold the shrimp straight, because usually when shrimp cooks, it'll curl up onto itself. But this will hold it straight and help it to cook a little bit more evenly. Not to mention having it on the skewers and putting it directly onto the grill. If you lay it diagonally across the grill grates, it should help to prevent the shrimp from slipping between the grates. What I'll do is, instead of using skewers, is I actually have some grill gloves. And because the skewers don't go all the way into the shrimp, there's quite a bit, a few inches that stick out. It then allows you to more easily maneuver, because you can just use your hands with the grill glove, obviously, to grab the shrimp and put them on the grill, or even to take them off, which just makes it a lot easier to maneuver. So now I've got my prawns and I'm going to cook those first. Just take them, lay them out on the grill, putting them diagonally. And once again, this should help you to ensure that you don't have to worry about them slipping between the grates, right? Make it easier to handle. The shrimp cooks pretty quickly, so it's not going to be on there for hours. We're not smoking this or anything like that. Just turn the grill on, get it nice and hot, and really in just a few minutes, it's going to be cooked. Give it a turn about halfway through, just I think 5 minutes should typically be good enough if your grill is hot enough. And pretty much you're looking for the shell to turn pinkish. If you peek at the flesh, it should go from being translucent to being more opaque. Now for the smaller white shrimp, I'm going to just put those onto a grill pan. It's perforated so the heat can get through, but it's great for cooking smaller items like shrimp, vegetables, and whatnot. So that way you avoid the problem of having those smaller items slip through the grates. You take this, just make sure that your grill is hot, put the sheet on top. It'll heat up pretty quickly, and then you just put your shrimp onto that. And it's going to help you cook the shrimp without the hassle of, trying to grab shrimp from dropping between the grates. Now, the shrimp, I've coated with honey. And when honey comes into contact, because it comes into contact with fire, because of the sugar content, it caramelizes. So you want to be aware of that it doesn't go too far. And then with the honey is sticky in and of itself, but putting it onto the grill can kind of make the shrimp stick a little bit. So this is part of why you want to use oil. And it's like, should they stick, just use tongs to give them a little gentle push, flip them over, but you don't want to like rip them off the grill or anything like that and then rip away the shell. Just a little bit of patience, love and care, and just, as it's cooking, let it cook. When it gets to the point of changing color, that lets you know that the one side is done. Give it a flip halfway through and you're good to go. Another thing that I like about cooking shrimp in the shell is the presentation. It's a little bit different from what we're used to, right? If this was something you were cooking inside, you were sitting down inside to eat, we would take the shell off and whatnot. But here, I think it adds some visual interest. It makes it like different to look at, right? Because shrimp typically isn't served in the shell. Sometimes it might have the tail on, but just as frequently it's taken off. And I think it just makes it a little bit more visually interesting. You put this on a platter with, if it's your vegetables, your other meats, whatever else it is that you might have grilled. In this case, I had some corn, some steak and whatnot, and it looks really nice. It looks different. I find it to be incredibly appetizing. And so both versions taste really great. You put the shrimp on the skewers, you pull that off the grill, and for people, it's easy enough for them to grab by the skewers. So very easily able to self-serve.
Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my Cooking at Home playlist. Go ahead and click that thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.